This happened 12 years ago. I was back in the military school that shaped my youth, working late night shifts to pay the bills. The place felt heavy with memories, and I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The halls were dimly lit, and the air was thick with a kind of sadness. I had seen a lot here, and I never stopped thinking about it. One night, during my rounds, I heard footsteps behind me. They were slow and deliberate, echoing in the long halls. I thought maybe it was a student sneaking around, but when I turned to look back, there was nothing. Just the silence. Just me. For days after that night, I kept hearing the footsteps. They got louder, waking me from sleep sometimes. I felt as if someone was chasing me, even when I was alone. A few times, I noticed my old medals and photographs being moved around. I was terrified. I thought I'd lost those items. Now, they were in strange places, like someone was playing games with me. Each night felt different. I noticed shadows flickering at the corners of my eyes, but when I turned my head, there was nothing there. I brushed it off as the light playing tricks on me. But deep down, I was uneasy. Then came the dreams. I'd wake up, gasping, as if I was back in training. I could see my old cadets, the guys I went through everything with. Sometimes I thought I saw their faces at the edge of my vision, but when I turned to look, there was nothing. My heart raced, and I felt icy. It felt so real. One night, as I walked past the old gym, I heard the footsteps again. They were louder, like someone was pacing right behind me. I stopped, frozen. I felt compelled to keep moving, so I stepped forward. When I reached the entrance, I saw a figure in the shadows. My gut twisted. Is someone there? I called out. No answer. The figure just stood there, still. My heart thudded. I took a step back, instinct screaming at me to run. But just then, the gym door creaked open. My stomach dropped. I felt like I wasn't alone anymore. I didn't know if I was losing my mind or if something from my past was haunting me. Why are you here? A whisper echoed through the hall. My breath caught. I spun around, but the hallway was empty. Shadows danced on the walls. I was on edge, unsure of what to do next. I felt a deep urge to flee, but part of me wanted to stay. I wanted answers. Instead, I turned and walked away slowly, casting one last glance at the gym. The weight of the night pressed down on me. Something was out there waiting. I didn't know how to face it, and I still don't know who, or what, I encountered that night. The following day, I woke up feeling drained. I hadn't slept well. Shadows lingered in my mind, mocking me. I decided to spend my break in the library. It was quieter there, away from the echoes of the halls. I hoped the silence would ease my nerves. As I browsed through the books, I stumbled upon an old yearbook. The cover was faded, but it looked familiar. I flipped through the pages, each photo igniting memories I thought I had buried. There they were, my friends, my platoon. We had shared everything. But as I scanned the images, a chill ran down my spine. One face was missing. It was Mark, the one who had always been there, until he wasn't. His sudden departure had left a gap in our group. I had tried to forget how he vanished without a trace, leaving behind so many unanswered questions. My fingers trembled as I turned the page, and that S when I saw it. A scribbled note in a corner of the page, "I'll see you again." My heart raced. I had to know what it meant. I couldn't shake off the feeling that everything was connected: the footsteps, the shadows in my dreams, the eerie encounter by the gym. I grabbed my phone and decided to call Chris, one of the last in touch with Mark. It was time to dig into the past. Chris answered after a few rings. "Hey, it's been a while," he said, his voice warm but distant. I explained what was happening, how I felt Mark's presence creeping into my life again. There was a pause on the line. "Are you sure you want to open that door?" he asked. There it was, the hesitation. "I mean, it's been years. Maybe it's better to let it go." I felt anger boiling inside. He has been gone for 12 years. I have to understand. Did you ever find out what happened to him? I pressed, desperation clawing at me. Chris sighed. Not really. Just rumors. Some said he was caught up in something dark, something he couldn't escape. My gut twisted. Was it possible? Did something sinister happen to Mark? What kind of rumors? I asked hesitantly. I don't know, man. Some said there were strange occurrences like things moving on their own. Others claimed they heard voices in the halls. His words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Were the whispers I had heard connected to Mark? When did this all begin? I asked. After he left. We didn't talk about it, but people said it started then. I pulled the yearbook close, staring at Mark's empty smile. Chris, I'm going to find out more, I said firmly. I hung up the phone, feeling the weight of a decision. That night, I gathered my courage and returned to the old gym. I felt foolish for going back, but it was now or never. As I stepped inside, the air was colder than before. I scanned the darkness, gripping my flashlight tightly. I had to confront whatever was out there. That's when I heard it again, the footsteps. They were faster this time, moving toward me. My heart raced. I called out, Mark? Is that you? But the only response was silence. I stood my ground, breath held, waiting for something more. My instincts were screaming at me to leave. And as I took a step back, something cold brushed against my shoulder. I spun around, ready to confront whatever haunted these halls. But I wasn't alone anymore. I froze in place, my breath hitching in my throat. A figure emerged from the shadows, barely illuminated by my flashlight. It was tall, cloaked in darkness, almost blending into the walls of the gym. My mind raced, trying to grasp what I was seeing. Who are you? I managed to croak out, gripping the flashlight as if it were a lifeline. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it took a step closer, and I could see more details: a military jacket, the outline of a cap. My heart slammed in my chest. Mark? I whispered, hope mixing with fear. But the figure shook its head and stepped back, revealing a face that wasn't my friend's. The resemblance was uncanny, yet there was something off about it, something wrong. With a sudden burst of courage, I advanced a few steps. What do you want? I demanded. The figure raised a hand, pointing toward the dark corner of the gym. I followed its gesture, and my stomach twisted as I felt a sense of dread wash over me. The shadows there seemed to deepen, pulsing like something alive. Show yourself! I shouted, but the figure just continued to point, an eerie stillness enveloping the room. I squinted into the darkness, my pulse quickening. And just then, I noticed movement, slight but unmistakable, a whisper of something shifting, almost as if a hidden door was cracking open. Instinct pulled me farther away from the spot. I never should have come here. Before I could turn to flee, a voice echoed from the shadows, low and gravelly. He is not the only one. I felt the air chill further, frost creeping along my skin. Panic lanced through me, and I stumbled back, my mind racing through the implications of the voice. What do you mean? I shouted, even as my heart urged me to run. The figure remained silent, its finger unwavering. I turned my flashlight back at it, but it was gone. Just like that. The air felt heavier now, an oppressive weight that threatened to crush me. My breath came quick and shallow. I had to leave. I took a step back, then another, until I was near the exit. The whispers, those unsettling echoes from my dreams, encircled me like a fog. But as I reached for the door, something solid crashed to the floor behind me: a book. I turned, searching the darkened gym, and my flashlight flickered against the cover. The yearbook. The old one I had found earlier. It lay open, the pages rustling as if someone was flipping through them. Then I noticed a new entry at the bottom of the page. I stepped closer, my stomach twisting with anticipation. That's when I saw it clearly. A name followed by a date: Mark, class of 2006. Gone. Gone? I whispered, dread washing over me again. How could he be gone? He was right here in this school. In this gym. But then I heard it, a whisper, soft and insistent. Find me. The urgency in the voice sent shivers down my spine. I took a deep breath, realizing that this wasn't over. Not yet. I stepped back, the spirit-esque call echoing in my ears. I had to uncover the truth. My heart raced as I felt the shadows closing in again. Once more, I wasn't alone. I stumbled backward, adrenaline surging through me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me, lurking in the shadows of the gym. My heart pounded, a frantic rhythm in the stillness. The whispers still echoed in my mind. I turned to the door, hoping to escape the growing darkness. As I pushed the heavy door open, it creaked like an old ghost. My breath caught again. The hallway beyond was dark, but the faint light from my flashlight cut a path ahead. The whispers seemed to beckon me, urging me deeper into the school. I hesitated, unsure if I should head home or investigate further. The thought of leaving Mark's fate unresolved gripped me tightly. I chose to go forward. With each cautious step, memories of my previous visits to the school flooded back. The innocence of those days felt far away now. As I moved down the hallway, my feelings of dread intensified. I could hear the soft shuffle of footsteps, just behind me. I turned quickly, but found nothing. The air felt heavier, charged with an otherworldly presence. Finally, I reached a door marked Archives. It was slightly ajar, an invitation or a warning I couldn't tell. I pushed it open and stepped inside, my flashlight beam illuminating rows of old boxes and piles of dusty papers. My heart raced with anticipation. Could there be something here that explained what happened? I began rummaging through the stacks, my hands shaking. A newspaper clipping caught my eye. It was dated back to 2006, the year Mark had supposedly disappeared. The headline read, "Local student vanishes from military school." I scanned the article, my breath hitching again. It detailed Mark's sudden disappearance without a trace, but there was more. A name repeated throughout: Captain Jennings, the head of security at the school. I had heard that name from older students but never connected the dots. Suddenly, the door creaked again, and I spun around. A shadow moved in the dim light, and the air chilled around me. My instincts kicked in, and I ducked behind a row of boxes, peering out cautiously. I felt so vulnerable hiding there, heart racing. "Find me," the voice echoed again, clearer this time, almost a whisper. It was as if it was coming from inside my head. I held my breath, hoping whatever, or whoever, was out there hadn't noticed me. The shadow moved closer, and my pulse quickened. There was someone else in the room with me. Just then, my flashlight flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. Panic surged through me. I fumbled with the batteries, desperate to regain light, but before I could, I heard a voice right next to me, low and ominous. "Why did you come here?" I crouched, frozen in fear. I couldn't speak, couldn't even think. I was convinced whatever it was would see through my hiding place. Then came a rush of footsteps, quick and heavy, and in an instant, the door slammed shut. The sound echoed in the silence, and I felt tears prick at my eyes. I was trapped. I had to escape. I needed to find out what happened to Mark, but now I feared for my own safety. My heart raced as I pressed my back against the boxes, feeling the cool dust cling to my skin. The dark seemed to swallow the sound of my heartbeat, but I could hear something else, a rhythmic thumping, like a countdown. "Why did you come here?" The voice echoed again, closer now, the malice creeping into its tone. I strained to hear, my mind racing. Who was this person? What did they want from me? I decided I needed to do something, anything. My fingers brushed against the edge of a box, and I quickly grabbed it, readying myself to throw it if necessary. I held my breath, waiting. Another shadow swept across my hiding place, and the whispering rose again, just above a whisper. "Help me!" My instincts screamed at me to run, but fear held me in place. I had come looking for answers about Mark. Was this voice connected to him? Summoning every ounce of courage I could muster, I took a deep breath and inched forward, prepared to burst from my sanctuary if I had to. The only sound now was that of the thumping, the footsteps steadily growing closer. As the figure stepped into the scant light that spilled in from the slightly open door, my stomach dropped. It was a man, tall and imposing. He wore a security uniform, the same I had seen Captain Jennings in the old photographs. My gut twisted, something about him felt off. His face was stern, but his eyes were dark and hollow, like a deep abyss. I caught a glimpse of a badge on his chest, a name tag, Jennings. Was this the very man who had been at the center of Mark's disappearance? I peered at him, terrified yet drawn in by a strange magnetism. Would he have answers, or was he a part of the same mystery that had already swallowed Mark? "Why did you come here?" he repeated, voice low but steady, his eyes boring into mine. A chill ran down my spine as I finally found my voice. "I'm looking for Mark. I need to know what happened to him." He paused, a flicker of something igniting in his gaze. Anger, perhaps? Or was it recognition? "Mark should have never come here," he said softly, as if the words were dredged up from deep within an old wound. His presence was unwanted. Before I could respond, the door slammed wider, and the overhead lights flickered back to life. I shielded my eyes from the sudden brightness. But when I looked again, Jennings was gone. Just disappeared, like he'd never been there at all. Confusion flooded my mind. I stumbled out from behind the boxes into the now bright room, my eyes darting around for signs of where he might have gone. That was when I saw it. A piece of paper fluttered on the floor where Jennings had stood. I picked it up, and the words jumped out at me, "The truth lies beneath." Beneath what? My thoughts raced. Mark? This school? My pulse quickened as dread washed over me again. I had stumbled deeper into the dark secrets of this place, but now I was even more determined. I had to dig. I had to find the truth. Then, a banging from the direction of the archives door startled me. I could hear muffled voices outside, talking urgently. My heart sank. I wasn't alone anymore. And I feared what would happen next. I stood frozen, clutching the piece of paper in my trembling hand. The muffled voices outside grew louder, waves of urgency crashing through the stillness of the room. Someone was coming, and I couldn't risk being seen or caught. Quickly, I darted behind the boxes again, the dust rising in little clouds around me. My heart hammered against my ribs, matching the rapid thumping that filled my ears. The beam of a flashlight flickered through the crack of the door. Two silhouettes passed by, their urgent whispers mixing in with the chilling atmosphere. "Did you check the archives?" one voice asked, panicked. "Not yet. We need to find him before," the second voice answered, but then it faded as they moved further down the hall, leaving me alone again. I tried to steady my breathing, the weight of the paper pressing down on my palm. I needed to know more. Whatever was happening, it was clear that I was far deeper into this mystery than I had anticipated. Mark's name lingered in my thoughts, stirring feelings of dread and determination. The second the voices faded, I risked peeking out from my hiding spot. The room looked the same, all boxes and dust, but there was a heavy air of something sinister. The words on the paper echoed in my mind, "The truth lies beneath." Beneath what? The floor? The boxes? I needed to focus. My instincts told me it had to do with this storage room. But how? As I scanned the floor, my eyes landed on an old, large crate sitting awkwardly in the corner. It looked untouched, a thin layer of dust coating its surface. Something about it felt significant. I approached cautiously, glancing over my shoulder, remembering Jennings's hollow eyes and those urgent voices from outside. I pushed against the crate, the wood creaking under the pressure. With a groan, it shifted slightly. I leaned in harder, adrenaline fueling my efforts, and then it finally budged. The contents shifted within, something clattered faintly inside. I glanced at the open door. The noise from outside had quieted, but I could still feel the tension in the air. I quickly shoved the crate aside, heart racing as a dark opening revealed itself beneath. I knelt down, peering into the darkness below. A stepladder led into what appeared to be a small tunnel, a passageway I hadn't noticed before. Was this connected to whatever Jennings had been hiding? I took a deep breath. Then the echo of footsteps returned, louder this time, heavy and purposeful. They were coming back. I had to decide. With urgency pulling at me, I made my choice. I crouched down and slipped into the opening, lowering myself onto the ladder and feeling the cold air wash over me. As I descended, the voices above faded further into an unsettling silence. I could barely see, the light from the room above began to disappear. My heart raced, not just from fear but from what lay ahead. Then I heard a soft thud coming from below, followed by a whisper that made my skin crawl. "Help me," I gasped, catching my breath, realizing I was not alone in this darkened place. I clutched the sides of the ladder, my palms slick with sweat. The whisper had been so close, sending chills racing down my spine. "Help me," I could hardly believe I had heard it. Who was down here, and why did they need help? I hesitated, torn between climbing back up and pressing deeper into the darkness. The muffled sounds from the storage room were completely gone now, replaced by an oppressive silence that felt almost alive. Gathering my courage, I took a deep breath and continued down the ladder. Each rung creaked under my weight. As I reached the bottom, my feet hit the ground with a soft thud. I crouched low, taking a moment to allow my eyes to adjust to the dim light. The tunnel ended in a small, low-ceiling room. Shadows danced along the damp stone walls, and I felt the air grow colder. There was a faint glow coming from the far corner. As I moved closer, I saw it, a flickering light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting an eerie illumination across the space. When I looked around, my heart sank. The room was filled with old crates and worn-out furniture, much like the storage room above, but with one startling difference: metal bars lined one side of the room. My breath caught in my throat. It looked like a cage. The whisper came again, echoing from behind the bars. "Help me!" I rushed toward the eerie sound, my mind racing. "Who's there?" I called out, voice shaky. It's me," the voice croaked. As I approached, I could see a figure huddled on the ground, shrouded in shadows. "Please, I need to get out of here." I could barely make out the face. It looked battered but familiar. My heart raced with recognition as the dim light illuminated their features. It was Mark. The same Mark I'd known from those summers long ago, but he looked so different now, haunted and desperate. "Mark?" I whispered, disbelief flooding me. "What happened to you?" "They took me. They're watching. They can't know I'm here," he said breathlessly, glancing nervously toward the tunnel. "You have to get me out." The urgency in his voice sent panic racing through my veins. "How do I even unlock this?" I looked at the rusty padlock holding the door shut. "I don't know," he replied, sweat beading on his forehead. "Just hurry." I moved back, scanning the room for anything that could help. My fingers brushed against a toolbox propped against the wall. My breath quickened as I rifled through it. Wrenches, screws, and bolts cluttered the inside, but then I spotted a pair of pliers. I grabbed them and rushed back to the cage. "Hold on." With shaky hands, I yanked the lock. It resisted, rusted over time, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I grunted, twisting the pliers in earnest, and finally, I heard a click. The lock fell open. Mark scrambled to his feet the moment I swung the door open. "You have to go. Now," he urged, his eyes wild, but before we could escape, a loud crash echoed from the tunnel. The sound of heavy footsteps approached, pounding like thunder in the confined space. My eyes widened in terror. "Someone's coming," I yelled. Mark pushed me toward the exit. "Go. I'll hold them off. Just run." I hesitated for a heartbeat, but the urgency of the situation crushed any lingering doubts. I dashed back toward the tunnel, Mark's desperate shout trailing behind me. But as I reached the ladder, everything went dark. The bulb overhead flickered once, twice, then died completely, plunging me into darkness. I froze, panic setting in. I had to get out. I had to get Mark, and fast. But first, I had to find my way back. I felt around in the pitch black, my heart racing as the sound of footsteps grew louder. The thud of boots echoed off the stone walls, each step heavy with purpose. I couldn't let them catch me. Not now. Not after I'd come this far. "Mark!" I whispered, hoping he could hear me. But there was no answer. Just the relentless footsteps approaching fast. I backed away from the ladder, trying to remember the layout of the room in the darkness. My hands brushed against cold metal and I realized it was the cage. I gripped the bars tightly, allowing its structure to guide me in this unfamiliar darkness. I breathed deeply, but the air was stale and heavy with fear. I needed a way out, and I needed it fast. The footsteps stopped just beyond the tunnel, and I pressed myself against the cage, barely daring to breathe. Silence enveloped me, but I could feel eyes upon me. My instincts screamed for me to orient in that pin-drop stillness. A shadow moved across the tunnel entrance. I squinted, trying to make out any detail. The dim light from the dying bulb made it hard to see. They were here. Whoever had taken Mark had come back. My pulse quickened. I needed to think. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something glinting on the floor. A small object, half hidden in the dust near the toolbox. I crawled toward it carefully, the footsteps still audible in the silence. My fingers closed around it, and I felt a rush of relief. A flathead screwdriver. Its weight in my palm felt like a lifeline. I had to save Mark. If I could just find a way to get him out of there. With the screwdriver, maybe I could pry the lock open again. My mind raced as I glanced back toward the tunnel. The footsteps were moving closer again, a deliberate cadence that echoed off the walls. I turned back to the cage. Mark! Can you hear me? I whispered urgently as I fumbled with the screwdriver. Yeah. I'm here, he replied, his voice strained. You need to get out of here. I'm not leaving you. I knew I wouldn't abandon him like that. Not after everything. With one hand, I twisted the screwdriver into the lock, pushing with all my strength. It wasn't easy, the mechanisms were old and caked with rust. My breath quickened as I heard the footsteps pause near the tunnel's entrance again. Just do it, I begged myself. I could feel the lock budging slightly. Then suddenly, another crash resounded, louder this time, directly behind me. I spun around. The shadow loomed closer, and panic surged. This wasn't just a figure in the dark. Someone was here, and I could barely make out their shape. At that moment, I knew I had one chance. Determined, I pressed the screwdriver into the lock again, twisting with everything I had. I heard a faint click, and before I could think twice, I shoved the door open. Mark! Come on! I shouted, my voice echoing back at me. But as he lunged forward, the footsteps rushed into the room, a solid mass of darkness, and I knew I'd made a grave mistake. I stepped backward, gripping the screwdriver like a shield, just as the figure lunged toward us, eyes glinting with malice. Run! I screamed again, pushing Mark toward the tunnel, but in the chaos of the moment, I lost sight of the way back. Where are we going? He yelled, fear obvious in his voice. Anywhere but here. I replied. But then I saw it, another shadow darted behind the crates, a second person. The night was about to get even darker. I dashed past Mark, adrenaline coursing through me, and skidded behind the stacks of crates. I could hear the heavy boots stomping closer, too close for comfort. Mark followed, his breath ragged as he nearly collided with me. Where are we? He murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, I admitted. Just keep quiet. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat thrumming in my ears like a war drum. Crouched behind a crate, I peered around its edge. Dim light spilled in from the corridor, illuminating just enough that I could make out the figures advancing toward us. 2 men. Both dressed in dark uniforms, their faces obscured by shadows. They were searching. I could see the way they scanned the room, their eyes darting back and forth. They were looking for us. I needed a distraction, something to draw them away from the cage. The toolbox. I could use it to create noise. Carefully and quietly, I reached for a rusty wrench inside, its weight comforting in my palm. What are you doing? Mark whispered, terror etched across his face. Trust me, I said, steadying my breath. As the men moved closer, I nudged the toolbox over, watching it fall and thud against the floor with a loud bang. The sound echoed through the room, and both figures jerked their heads in its direction. Check it out. One of them ordered, and they both hurried toward the noise. My chance. Now. I whispered to Mark, and we slipped out from our hiding spot. We dashed behind another line of crates, moving low to the ground. I hoped the shadows would protect us as we crept toward the tunnel. I had forgotten the dread I'd felt moments before. Now, my focus sharpened. The way out was just ahead, a narrow passage that led further into darkness. But just before we could reach it, I felt a sudden jolt of panic. The floor beneath my foot gave way slightly. "Wait!" I hissed, pulling Mark back just in time. "What is it?" he demanded, his eyes wide. I shone my phone's light toward the ground. It revealed a grate, rusted and partially ajar, exposing a dark void below. This was no time to explore down there. "We have to go," I urged, backing away from the danger below. But the moment was cut short. From behind us, the voices of our pursuers returned, louder now as they realized the trick played upon them. "Did you hear that?" one shouted in frustration. "There's someone here," the other reiterated. It hit me then, a bored certainty. We needed to be quicker than before. I led Mark toward the tunnel, trying to maintain some sense of direction amidst the chaos. We could hear the sound of footsteps closing in again. "Keep moving," I urged, not stopping to look back. The chill of fear settled over us, but I refused to give in. As we entered the tunnel, a trapdoor loomed ahead, half open and beckoning. My mind raced. Maybe it led to safety, or maybe a dead end. I didn't care, I had to choose now. "Go!" I shouted, shoving Mark in front of me, and we hurried through the opening, just as the sound of boots echoed louder behind us. Then everything went dark. I stumbled, my hands reaching for any surface to slow my fall, but I heard Mark's shout of surprise before I hit the ground hard. The immediate darkness swallowed us whole. I blinked, trying to adjust, fear gripping me once more. Where were we? And worse, what was coming next? The darkness enveloped us completely, raw and tangible. I scrambled to steady myself on the cold ground, my breath quickened with adrenaline. "Mark?" I called out, my voice sounding small in the oppressive silence. No immediate response came, just the echo of my own words hanging in the air. I forced my senses to focus, listening for any sound that indicated where we had landed. Finally, I felt a hand grip my arm. "I'm here," Mark whispered, his voice edged with fear. Relief rushed through me, but it quickly turned to urgency. I needed to understand where we were and how to get out before our pursuers caught up with us. "Can you see anything?" I pressed, squinting into the abyss, but my eyes caught only shadows and indistinguishable shapes. "And no," he stammered. "Just darkness." As I strained to listen, distant murmurs reached my ears, a chorus of low whispers, anxious and trembling. "What are they saying?" I murmured, adrenaline flooding my veins once again. "Look out!" Mark suddenly shouted, his voice cutting through the soft murmurs as he yanked me back just as something swooped toward us. I felt the rush of air as whatever it was passed by, revealing nothing but a fleeting shadow against the darkness. "What was that?" I whispered, heart racing. "Did you see it?" he said, still clutching my arm in a vice grip. "Something moved." "Yeah, but I don't know what it was." "We have to find a way out." I glanced around, searching for anything that might guide our escape. My mind raced as I considered our options. Could we climb back up through the trapdoor, or was there another way out? "Follow me," I said, afraid to hesitate any longer. I kept my hand tightly around Mark's wrist, leading him forward. We stumbled through the unknown space, my instincts screaming for us to keep moving. Soon, we came across a faint glow up ahead, a flickering light that shone steadily through another opening. I glanced back at Mark, who seemed both hopeful and wary. "Let us check it out," I said, as we approached the light. As we drew nearer, the whispers surrounded us again, the words unfurling in a strange language that rattled through me. Were they warnings or calls for help? It was impossible to tell, but as we emerged into the light, the reality hit me hard. We stepped into a chamber, the walls carved stone illuminated by the soft, steady glow of lanterns. Crates lined the walls, many of them covered in dust while others lay open, revealing an unsettling assortment of relics: a tarnished medal, a grimy beret, and photographs of past cadets, their faces faded and worn like ghosts. "Is this part of the school?" Mark asked incredulously, eyes darting around. "I don't know," I replied, taking a tentative step inside the room. "But we need to keep moving." As we examined our surroundings, the atmosphere shifted again, the air seeming to thicken and swirl. I felt a presence, looming just beyond our sight. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of desperate voices calling us, begging us to stay. Don't listen to them, I urged Mark, feeling the pull of the shadows tugging at my thoughts. Something isn't right. Then, without warning, a figure emerged from the gloom. It was Jennings, his hollow eyes glinting in the lantern light. You shouldn't be here, he rumbled, voice low and powerful, wrapping around us like chains. Why? I demanded, courage flaring. What happened to Mark? Why did you take him? The shadows flickered and whispered around us, pulsating with a life of their own. You think you can challenge what holds sway here? This is a sanctuary for those lost. Tell him the truth, Jennings growled, stepping closer. No, we're not staying here, I said, panic welling within me. I backed away from him, but the shadows seemed to coil tighter. Help me! Mark cried, the fear in his voice breaking through. Help, but at what cost? Jennings smirked, his figure blending into the dark. He belongs to the past now. No! I yelled, my pulse racing faster, anger surging. You're wrong. Mark is coming with me. I grabbed Mark's hand, gripping it like a lifeline, and pulled him toward an exit that glimmered, hidden in the shadows. But just then, more shadows converged. Their forms were indistinct yet imposing, their voices echoing louder in our ears. We had to act fast. With every ounce of strength, I sprinted toward the light. Run! I shouted as I pushed forward, Mark right beside me. The wall of shadows pushed back, clawing at us, but I could see the glimmer of freedom. Hand in hand, we broke through the darkness into the light, a blinding burst that sent us tumbling forward. And then everything went still. I blinked rapidly, trying to analyze the new surroundings we emerged into. It was the gym, familiar yet foreign. Lying on the floor, sunlight streaming in through tall windows, transformed the space. Is this real? I stammered, panting. I think we did it, Mark said slowly, dazed disbelief washing over his features, but as we caught our breath, the memory of the shadows hung heavy in the air, a weight pressing down on my chest. I didn't know if we had truly escaped or if something was still lurking, waiting for the moment to reclaim what it had lost. Did we do it? I breathed, glancing around, my heart heavy with uncertainty. Did we win? Maybe, Mark replied, his gaze searching the corners of the room. But I can't shake this feeling, I still see them. The shadows were not gone, their whispers dripped with implications unanswered. I moved closer to Mark, eyes darting to every corner of the gym. We had escaped, but the truth was still buried somewhere. Our breaths hung in the sunlight as we stared into the void, wondering if we had really left it behind or if we would one day have to confront it again. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: the echoes of the past would linger, with the question of Mark's fate still hanging in the air unanswered and unresolved.